başarılarının ardından bu arada Quartararo ve Toprak Razgatlioglu tabii ki
MotoGP may have concluded its 2025 season in Valencia, but the championship is already accelerating into an entirely new era. Valencia didn't close a chapter. It quietly opened the most dramatic transformation the sport has seen in nearly 20 years. Engines shrinking to 850cc, aerodynamics being scaled back, ride height devices disappearing. And the biggest shift of all, the move from Michelin to Pirelli tires in 2027. Inside the paddock, the atmosphere felt charged, tense, restless, and uncertain. Engineers walked the garages like they were preparing for a storm. Team principals held emergency strategy meetings that stretched late into the night. Riders knew the ground was shifting under their feet. The Valencia finale wasn't the end of a season. It was the final breath before a reset that would rewrite MotoGP itself. And in the middle of that pressure stood Toprak Razgatlioglu, the three-time World Superbike champion stepping into MotoGP with Pramac Yamaha. A rider whose arrival carried more expectation than any rookie in recent memory. But the deeper truth, the one the paddock was trying to understand, was far more complicated than a rumored advantage or a simple transition. Everything about MotoGP's future was about to be shaken, and nothing, absolutely nothing, would be guaranteed. The 2025 finale marked the last moment of stability before MotoGP shed its identity. The 850cc era promised a bike that behaved differently. Gone were the violent acceleration characteristics of the modern V4 monsters. The future pointed toward a more balanced machine, less raw power, more precision. Aerodynamics, after years of dominating race outcomes, would be limited. Ride height devices, once considered the biggest performance leap since traction control, would vanish. The switch to Pirelli threatened to change not only grip levels, but how every factory designed its motorcycles. The scale of change was so large that some insiders described it as a second birth for MotoGP. Yet beneath every engineering discussion, every political conversation, one name kept surfacing: Toprak. The man many believed would thrive in the new era because he came from a world defined by Pirelli tires. But this belief, popular on social media, repeated by fans, and whispered among commentators, was built on a foundation that would collapse the moment the truth surfaced. Toprak Razgatlioglu entered MotoGP carrying something very few riders bring into a rookie season: fear from his rivals and curiosity from engineers. He dominated World SBK not through horsepower but through technique. His braking was legendary, aggressive yet controlled. His ability to manipulate the front tire defied logic. He performed saves that made slow-motion cameras tremble. He rode like someone playing a different sport. When he finally signed for Pramac Yamaha, it felt less like a surprise and more like destiny. The paddock had been waiting for this crossover for years, but Toprak didn't arrive with arrogance, he arrived with calculation. He understood what many fans didn't. MotoGP wasn't Superbike with more speed. It was a completely different language, different physics, different instincts, different risks. His plan was simple: observe first, then attack. But that patience confused many who expected fireworks from the very first moment. And in Valencia, the world saw the first glimpse of that approach. The Yamaha garage was surrounded by cameras the moment Toprak climbed onto the V4 prototype. Fans expected his infamous stoppies, his trademark microscopic lean angle micro-adjustments, his aggressive sliding. But the Toprak who left the pit lane wasn't seeking to impress. He was gathering data. Lap by lap, he focused on understanding deceleration forces, throttle translation, electronic behavior, and weight transfer. His manager, Keen and Sofuolu, explained the reason behind the caution. He is careful at the moment. He's very scared to make mistakes. There is just one V4 for him. With only a single bike available, Toprak refused to gamble. He refused to push beyond what the situation allowed. And yet, even riding within his comfort zone, he finished ahead of Alex Rins and Jack Miller. He clocked consistent mid-130s. No pushing, no searching for the limit. no attempt to produce a heroic lap time. Yamaha engineers left the test with one unsettling realization. If this was Toprak holding back, the version that finally unleashed himself could be something the entire grid would fear. But the challenge wasn't only about Toprak, it was about the machine beneath him, Yamaha's all-new V4. Yamaha abandoning its historic inline-4 concept was more than a redesign, it was a philosophical shift. For decades, the inline-4 had been Yamaha's signature. Fluid cornering, smooth power delivery, a predictable front end. The bikes carried the DNA of Rossi's era, deliberate, balanced, and graceful. But modern MotoGP punished that concept. Yamaha struggled against Ducati's brutal acceleration, KTM's adaptive aero, and Aprilia's corner exit stability. So Yamaha made a decision that shocked even its own staff: rebuild from zero. The V4 represented not just a new engine, but a new identity. At test time, 4 riders became the pillars of development: Fabio Quartararo, the benchmark; Alex Rins, the veteran development anchor; Jack Miller, the experienced tester with years of prototype knowledge; and Toprak, the wildcard talent with instincts nobody else possessed. Their input carried different weight, their riding styles clashed, their priorities didn't always align. Rins, after the first runs, dropped a quiet warning: "We need unity. All the riders must pull in the same direction." Behind his words was concern. If the riders disagreed on the V4's trajectory, Yamaha risked creating a machine that suited nobody perfectly. And yet, this internal complexity was only half the story. Outside the Yamaha box, a narrative had begun to spread like wildfire. The claim was simple: Toprak would dominate because of the Pirelli switch. It made sense to fans. It was repeated on podcasts. It echoed through Twitter threads and YouTube comments. But when Giorgio Barbier, Pirelli's motorcycle racing director, was asked about this supposed advantage, he shut the idea down immediately. "I don't see any major advantage. Great riders adapt immediately, regardless of the brand." Then he explained the real truth. The MotoGP Pirelli tires wouldn't resemble superbike tires at all. They would be built specifically for the 850cc era. Different rim sizes, different carcass structures, different stress profiles, different heat behavior, different load characteristics under lean. Simply put, the Pirelli MotoGP tires were not an evolution of the World SBK tires. They were an entirely new species. Barbier then added the line that shifted the entire argument. The riders who will have more opportunities to test these tires throughout next year will have the slight advantage. Not past Pirelli experience, not superbike pedigree, time, track time, data, access, opportunity. That was the new currency of MotoGP, and the implications were enormous. Because in Yamaha's 4-rider structure, determining who received the most testing responsibility would become a political battlefield. But the truth about adaptation didn't fully surface until a rookie, riding a MotoGP bike for the first time, revealed what overwhelmed him the most. When Moto2 champion Diogo Moreira tested a MotoGP machine at Valencia, he was expected to struggle with the power, or the electronics, or the sheer acceleration. Instead, he pointed at something else entirely. The most difficult thing was the brakes. Not speed, not traction, the brakes. The violent deceleration of carbon discs, the force that crushes a rider's chest into the tank, the sensitivity required to avoid locking a wheel at 330 kilometers an hour. Moreira's experience mirrored Toprak's quiet adaptation challenges. It exposed a truth repeated by veterans. The hardest part of MotoGP isn't the tire, it's the machine. Carbon brakes, prototype mechanics, aerodynamic load, electronic decision-making, tire familiarity barely matters when the bike behaves like a missile. And this reality broke the myth of Toprak's supposed Pirelli advantage, because MotoGP demands a sensory recalibration so extreme that prior tire experience becomes just another detail, not a deciding factor. But the real advantage, the silent one that would shape 2027 more than any other variable, wasn't technique, it was politics. Pirelli had confirmed it. Riders and factories who secured more test laps on prototype tires during 2026 would enter the 2027 season with a real edge. That meant the tire supplier wasn't granting an automatic advantage to anyone from World SBK. Instead, the factories who negotiated the most track access and the riders prioritized for testing would quietly gain momentum. Inside Yamaha, the question grew urgent. Who gets priority? Quartararo, the star? Rins, the development backbone? Miller, the experienced tester? Or Toprak, whose style could demand a different direction altogether? There was no way to keep all four equally satisfied. And that imbalance threatened to fracture Yamaha just as the V4 was learning to breathe. MotoGP's next era wouldn't be shaped only by engineering. It would also be shaped by access, strategy, and political leverage. And in that volatile environment, Toprak stood between enormous opportunity and enormous risk. His future wouldn't be shaped by old Pirelli knowledge. It would be shaped by how quickly he adapted to Yamaha's V4, how deeply he connected with his crew, how many laps he got during Pirelli testing, how effectively he evolved with the 850cc regulations. His legendary braking technique, his front-end mastery, and his instinctive feel for grip would help him, but they wouldn't guarantee anything. Because MotoGP's new age won't reward memory, it will reward evolution. And that's where Toprak becomes dangerous. He isn't trying to shortcut the future. He's building toward it slowly, intentionally, intelligently. The version the public wants to see, the aggressive braker, the sliding genius, the physics breaking artist, will come in time. The fireworks are coming, they're just waiting for the right moment. And when Yamaha's V4 finally reaches stability, when Pirelli's new tires reach consistency, when the 850cc era resets the playing field, the rider who adapts the fastest will define the future. And the moment Toprak Razgatlioglu discovers the limits of the MotoGP machine, he will start rewriting them.